Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I recently got CISM certified and I wanted to share that entire experience with you today in this video. So for those of you who watch my channel, you know like a little more than 2 months ago, I actually got CISSP certified. And this was like one of the biggest achievements, academic achievements, I should say, in my career, since CISSP is considered the holy grail, the gold standard in cybersecurity certifications, and thankfully I was able to clear that and get CISSP certified. If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to leave a link for it in the video description. I'll probably pin it somewhere on the top of this video as well. So feel free to check out that CISSP video. However, as I said, today I'm going to be sharing how I prepped and how the overall experience was in getting CISM certified. So CISM stands for Certified Information Security Manager, and it's a pretty big cyber. When I say big, well recognized security certificate as well. So it is a management certificate, right? So it's not something recommended, and in fact, it's impossible to get if you're now getting into cybersecurity because you require 5 years of experience to actually get the certificate itself. So even though you pass the exam, you still need to provide that evidence of 5 years experience before you are granted the CISM certificate. So this certificate is brought to us by a body named ISACA, right? And ISACA stands for Information Systems Audit and Control Association. So they're a pretty big body, heavily involved in cybersecurity, security frameworks, certifications, etc. So they develop also the popular COBIT framework, and that deals with IT governance. ISACA is responsible for developing the COBIT framework, right? So the CISM exam itself, it consists of 4 domains, right? So domain 1 deals with information security governance. Domain 2 deals with information security risk management. Domain 3, information security program. And domain 4, incident response, right? So 4 domains, as opposed to CISSP that deals with 8 domains. ISACA, it's a lot less content to cover in terms of preparation since it's just 4 domains, right? And one of the main reasons I decided to go after this exam right after being CISSP certified, there's a lot of overlap in terms of the material, the study material. And based on a lot of the reviews and recommendations I saw online, a lot of people said, once you finish CISSP, since the material is knowledge is still fresh in your memory, just pursue the CISM certification right after, So that was really my plan, and my whole thought strategy, while pursuing this. So the exam itself, it consists of 150 questions, and you have a time limit of 4 hours to complete the actual exam itself, right? So you have more than adequate time, to complete the exam. It's like works out to like 2 minutes and a half, I think, to answer per question. And guys, trust me, if you prepare well enough for this exam, you're not gonna need anywhere close to that 4 hours. I think I took something like 2 hours and a half, if I'm not mistaken, to clear the exam itself, right? So the cost of the exam is 760 US dollars for non-members. So if you're not a member of ISACA, you have to pay 760 US dollars. And if you are a member, you pay $575. Right, so I am actually not a member as of recording this video, so I paid 760. But kind of in hindsight, I should have probably just joined and be a member, because I would have got it for a reduced cost, and it would kind of, weigh out the actual cost for the membership itself. Right. So as I said, the plan was to just kind of immerse myself into preparing for this exam right after the CISSP. I was actually thinking about sitting this like a month after passing CISSP. But you know what? Life happened. Right. And when I said life happened, right after passing the CISSP exam, being certified, I got laid off. Yeah, so I was actually a security manager with a company, and they had like mass layoffs, company restructuring, and stuff like that. And unfortunately, my position was one of those that kind of was included in that. So I got laid off, and it was really weird. In my 20-year career, this was like the first time I actually got laid off, believe it or not. So it was just, just kind of really messed me up a bit, for a while, threw me off course, just trying to figure out, my next step. And I couldn't study, and I was just, trying to process everything, being laid off, sending in applications, job hunting, the full works during that period right after. But I kind of made up my mind. I reached a point to realize, here's what, this is something I want to pursue, and I need to kind of refocus, realign my goals and my, my plans and everything. So, what always was hard, I kind of just brought, refocused everything, and I started back studying for the exam. And it took me 2 weeks of prep time to prepare for this exam. So some of the resources that I actually use to prepare for this exam, I'm going to leave links for it in the video description as well. And these are not affiliate links. I have nothing to gain by you checking out these resources. I just want to freely share these with you because they were a big plus for me, and I'm hoping they'll be helpful for you as well. So number one, right, in terms of learning resources, cloud security, a guy by the name of Pete Zigger, he has an awesome CISM YouTube playlist, which, breaks down everything, really clear, really understandable, really relatable, and his course was like my number one resource I use to study for the CISM exam, right? I watched his YouTube videos. I think it's like 4 YouTube videos, or probably 8, I can't remember. But I know he had videos for each domain, like 2 videos per domain. Yeah, so I watched them like twice, so entire playlist I watched twice, over and over. So, and that was like my biggest resource. He also has this book as well that you could purchase. I think it's a virtual book, PDF, EPUB format, right? And I think it's really affordable as well, like 10, 20 US, I believe. But I actually purchased that, just my way of helping him out do what he loves to do, because he provides all this awesome content for free, so it was just my way of giving back and supporting him as well. So if you could afford it, I would advise you, why not purchase his book as well. It's really useful also. My next and my probably only other resource I really used was by the name of a guy named Prab Nai. He is on YouTube as well, and I said I'm going to leave a link for it in the video description. And he has a 3-hour masterclass video on YouTube. And this was really good in terms of solidifying a lot of the things I already learned in cloud securities CISM playlist. This did an awesome job of kind of consolidating it and reinforcing some of the things I learned previously. And I watched his 3-hour masterclass video like 2 times, and it kind of really helped those concepts to sink in, and be understandable to me. Right, so those were really my 2 main resources for studying. And last but not least, which is equally important and maybe even more to some extent, was the official ISACA questions and answer database. Right, and it's a little pricey, but it's totally worth it, guys. So the cost of it is 300 US for members. For non-ISACA members, it's 400 US dollars. So I purchased this question and answer database, and what it does, it gives you similar style questions as the exam. So it's not the same. So it's not like a brain dump that what you're seeing there is what is gonna come for the exam, but it kind of really tunes your mind, in terms of how ISACA asks questions and what kind of answers they're looking for, in terms of having the right mindset, I would say. Because on the exam day itself, what I notice and what you probably notice as well, there are multiple correct answers, right? So you would literally see like maybe 2 or 3 answers that are technically correct. So what the question and answer database does, it lets you kind of understand what answer ISACA is wanting, what is the correct answer in their mind. So this question and answer database is totally worth it. And I think it's like 1,000 questions they give you in this database or more. I think I finished like 800 and something. I didn't finish the entire thing, maybe like 700-800 questions. I was scoring like 70 something percent, in the questions itself, so But this was really useful for me, guys. And honestly, without this, I don't think I could have passed the exam because, as I said, beside learning the concepts, the mindset is really important as well. So if you could afford it, definitely recommend getting that from ISACA. Right, so those are my three resources I use: Cloud Security, Pizzica's CISM YouTube playlist, Prabnai's 3-hour masterclass video on YouTube, and the official questions and answer database from ISACA. So compared to the CISSP exam, although there's not as much as material to cover and it's not as technical as CISSP, it's definitely a different mindset. Yes, CISSP, you'll hear the phrase think like a manager, but I will say for CISM, it's more so. So it's more think more like a manager for CISM, because they won't ask you, like technical questions like CSSP, like in terms of encryption algorithms like Diffie-Hellman, RSA, etc. But a lot of the questions are going to be geared towards more strategic, types of answers and, governance, risk compliance. So more managerial type questions. So, that's the different. I won't necessarily say it's easier, but it's definitely a different type of mindset. Right, so give you the rundown about what CISM is about, what the detail, some of the details and the questions cost, my prep strategy. So last but not least, in terms of my exam experience, right? So I actually booked the exam to sit the exam at home, so it'd be remotely proctored, and this, was an absolute nightmare, guys. So I have done a lot of other remotely proctored exams, and everything went smooth. I did Microsoft, I did CompTIA exams from home, but this ISACA exam was a complete nightmare. And this, I'm not saying to discourage you, because I saw others, thought the remote exam was great, but my experience was horrendous. So what happened when I was actually checking into the exam itself? They make you take your webcam and kind of browse the room. So when I took my webcam and I browsed the room with it, the webcam got out of focus. And the remote proctor was telling me I needed to focus it. I was trying all sorts of different things to do it, but for whatever reason, it was not refocusing. And I asked permission if I could just unplug it and plug it back in because it was a USB webcam. They told me yes, it's fine to do so. When I did so, however, it dropped me out of the exam session. And I tried multiple times to getting back to the session and it just didn't work. And eventually I wasn't able to log in at all because the 30 minutes time period had expired and they counted me as absent, although I was not absent. But luckily I reached out to ISACA support, which was super helpful and great. And I told them my situation and they allowed me to rebook the exam. This time, however, I didn't want to take any chances. So I booked it at a testing center. Maybe it was like an hour away from where I lived, but I thought it was worth the trip because I didn't want to mess up this the second time around. So I went down to the testing exam, the testing center, sorry. I sat the exam and I told you it took about 2.5 hours. And when I hit on, so the time about you don't get your results right away. Once you finish sitting the exam, you have this survey to go through, right? So I had to answer this bunch of questions with my heart racing because, as I said, it's a kind of nerve-wracking thing. Although you think you're prepared, you just never know, right? And then finally, when I hit, end or submit or whatever for the survey, I saw congratulations, you passed, and I was like one of the greatest feelings in the world to me. So yeah, so I passed the exam. That was super exciting. After passing the exam, similar to CISSP, you have to go through a waiting period because then you initially provisionally pass, then they'll double check it, and maybe like a week after they let you know, okay, yeah, you did pass. And then you have to go through and submit an application to verify your work experience, so you submit, they will give you an application form, you submit your work experience, then you have to give the contact information of two people that could, verify you worked at those places. And I did that, and maybe like 5 days or a week after, I got the official ISACA CISM certification, and that was awesome as well to actually be certified, and get that CISM certificate. But overall the experience was great. preparing for this exam. As I said, it took me 2 weeks, so not as much prep time as with my CISSP. It took me a month, like 4 weeks. This took me half the time. And the reason for that, as I said, there's a lot of overlap in the material itself, and it wasn't as much as material to cover, for the exam. So overall, pretty awesome experience. And I'm going to leave links for all the resources I mentioned in the video description below. So in closing, if any one of you are preparing for the exam, the CISM exam, let me know. I'm interested in knowing in the video description. Let me know what resources you are currently using. Also, do you think this video is valuable? Do you found any value in this particular video that I made? Also interested in knowing, please let me know down below. Also, if you have already sat and passed the exam itself, I'm interested in knowing what resources did you use to prepare for this exam. Let me know down below. On the flip side to that, perhaps you failed the exam. I'm also interested in knowing, what do you think you could have probably done better, moving forward from that experience. So that brings me to the end of this video. And as always, if you like this kind of content and you haven't already, why not consider subscribing to the channel, hitting on the notification bell so you'll be notified once a new video is released. As always, thanks again for viewing. See you in the next one.